Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. This week, I'm talking to Izzy Abuleela about his stunning extra long exposures, as well as some interesting experiences he's had along the way. Izzy likes to say that he's just a normal guy with a passion for photography, but he's much more than that. He can't help but rise before sunrise and head out into the dark, camera in hand, looking to capture the landscape in the pre-dawn gloom. He shoots exclusively with the Fuji Medium Format digital system. Specialising in the practice of long exposure, Izzy captures the often unseen beauty by the art of simplification, presenting a unique view of the world where time is expressed in physical form. Originally from Liverpool in the UK and now living in Australia, Izzy is dedicated to exploring and sharing iconic and lesser-known locations around his local area and across Australia. He runs a popular YouTube channel where he shares his journey, approach and camera techniques, and by doing so connects and learns from the viewer through comments and suggestions. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Izzy, welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity to chat.
It's an absolute pleasure. Been following your stuff for quite some time and really pleased when you said that you were happy to come on board. And so I guess let's start with what got you started. How did you get into photography, and what's your earliest photography memory?
It was a long road to photography, I suppose. As part of work, I worked in a art centre. It was a college and art centre, and having an IT background, I taught IT to a whole heap of visual artists and music tech students. And one of the groups that I had to teach basic IT to were the photography students. And at that point, I was just blown away with the ability to create something that most people just walk past every single day. And I think working with those kids, I think that stuck with me for quite a while. So that was my early 20s. And you have to realize that I didn't actually own a camera until my mid 40s. So I've only really had a camera for the past 8 years. Before that, just wasn't part of my kit bag, so to speak. And so I had a background I taught kids 3D games development. And as part of that, to do textures, I used to make them go out and take photographs of bricks and concrete and things like that so they could use those textures. Sure. But I never did it myself. I always went with them and the way they did it. And I didn't get a camera myself until I arrived in Australia, which was 12 years ago now. And then I think it was the landscape that just meant I needed to capture it. Yeah. And initially I was taking photographs only to send to family and friends back home, just to say, wow, you just would not believe this place. Just look at this. I think that's when I started. They must have been sick of me because I was sending 100 pictures a week. Wow. And holiday snaps, you know how it is, Grant. They were not photographs. They were nothing special. They were just literally pull out a camera. I think it was the Olympus OMD. I think it was the EM1.
Yep.
Yeah. So, micro four thirds. Yeah. Little camera, little dinky retro camera that could fit in my pocket, pop it out and snap away. And then, that was probably the start.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So I guess, judging by your accent, you're from the UK.
Yes.
Originally.
Yeah. Well picked up. Yeah, from Liverpool in the UK.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought it was there or around the Lancashire area.
yeah, yeah. So you weren't too bad. Yeah, the northwest. So Lancashire's part of that area. So yeah, yeah. Born and bred.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So, what made you come out to Australia? What was the?
The wife. So I met my wife back in obviously in the UK, and I think she got to her. I think it was her fifth. I think it was her fifth winter. It might have been the fourth winter, and she said, "I can't take this anymore.
Right.
I'm going back to Australia." And I'm really pleased she followed up with, "Are you coming?" So never been, and I went, "Yeah, okay, we'll give that a go," and that's what we did. So that's where I said earlier on about I'm getting used to just packing the house up and just moving, because on a whim that's what we did. We
Yeah.
packed up, and obviously she came back to Australia, and I landed in Australia. And yeah, and I was we landed in Perth, and the first morning I was there, we were at a little harbour called Mindari or
Yep.
Mindari, I think it is, and I just remember looking out, and it was just everything was blue and golden, and just went on forever. And coming from the UK, where everyone's packed like sardines, cheek by jowl, I just didn't believe there was that much space anywhere.
Yeah. Where Western
Um,
Australia is definitely the place for space.
oh, well, yes, yeah, it's true. Both the interior and looking west.
Yeah.
And I just sat there having eggs Benedict, and I went, "Do you know what? This is just home." And that was the first morning. I've
Wow.
never looked back since.
Fair enough. That's good. So, after you got your point and shoot, and you started, sending back your holiday snaps or your point and shoot snaps or whatever, what made you start to take it more seriously and take it to the next level?
Um, I've always tried my best to do the best I can, whatever I do. I think it's probably something internal that just drives me to try and do the best I can. And I think the turning point was I bought a tripod, and I also bought, I think they were called the 7.5 filter system by
Mm-hmm.
Lee, and they
Yep.
made that for Micro Four Thirds. And I bought them. I suppose one of those knee jerk reactions. I think I saw a lot. I know I saw some long exposure photography, and I thought, wow, it just blew me away. I thought I've got to have a go at that.
Yeah.
So I just quick look on Google, and it said what you needed was a tripod and a filter system. So that's what I got, and then off I went. And at the time, I didn't even realize that you needed an adapter ring for the for the lens. So I turned up for my first shoot. I had all these bits and pieces, and then I quickly realized that it was just never going to work. It
Yeah.
just wouldn't fit together because I didn't have the adapter ring to fit
That's
the
part of the
kit
joy
on.
of learning photography, I guess, isn't it?
It is, yeah, by beating yourself up. So I had to have a little think at that point and thought, you're doing the best you can, but is your best good enough here? But I persevered, and got that adapter ring, and that was it. I was away, and I think I was hooked on long exposure at that point,
Yep.
specifically, very long exposures. I really wanted to push my equipment to its absolute limits, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, with the Olympus, it was great for everything, but it was extremely poor when it come to long exposure. It was
Right.
probably the noisiest camera on the market, for what I wanted it to do. It's a great little camera, but just that was the one bugbear with it, and I couldn't bear myself to use the noise reduction on it, because I'd regularly take 8 to 10 minute exposures, and the thought of sitting there for another 10 minutes to create a black screen was just, it was too much. So
fair enough.
And that pushed me to buy the Nikon, and it wasn't again, I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, so that wasn't a deliberate choice by checking out Canon, checking out Nikon. I just walked in and went, what do you think the best camera you've got, DSLR? And it was the D800 at the time. He went, well, this is pretty good. I went, sold, give me it.
Was it the most expensive one in the shop?
It probably was.
Yeah. That's usually what you get when you ask a salesman what's
silly question. Yeah. And then of course,
not saying that salesmen are dishonest, but yeah.
No, that's true. But I did ask for whatever the best they had. I'm sure they had better, but he probably looked at me and gauged it at the right level, I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then it was like I had to wait then, because I couldn't afford the leaf filter system, which it was at that time. So I had to buy that piece by piece almost.
Yeah.
Automatically I gravitated towards water. I suppose long exposure and water go hand in hand anyway. But I think last week I did a check on my Instagram feed, and I think there's about 470 odd pictures on there, and there's only 7 that don't feature water. So that pretty much told me that I'm addicted to water in whatever form that is.
Yeah, I've never done that exercise myself. I should have a look and see what the percent. I know it will be a very high percentage, because seascapes are what I am passionate about. But them waterfalls and around Sydney Harbour and whatever around the city, it's hard to take a shot that doesn't have some water in it somewhere.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
particularly this week where it's been raining now for about 8 days solid.
Yeah, and twice or 3 times the normal rain too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you point your camera, it's going to find water.
It's going to hit water, or water's going to hit you. Yes,
yeah, that's right.
That's true. But on the waterfront, I'm not sure, and that wasn't a film link then. But on the waterfront, I think it's probably in my blood, because my father was a merchant seaman.
Yep.
And Liverpool is probably, or was, one of the largest ports worldwide for a long time.
Yeah.
And my formative years growing up, you're 5 and 6 years old and your mum kicks you out for the day. And we spent pretty much every day during the summer holidays down at the docks, clambering up and over jetties, and avoided being smacked around the back of the head by the dockers.
Yeah.
So yeah, the smell and the sounds of water has always been alongside me for an awful long, for most of my life.
Yeah.
And I think I only really noticed it when I lived further inland than I normally do. So when we were in WA, I lived pretty near the water, and then we moved to Melbourne, and I was an hour away from the water.
Yep.
And I think I really felt that then, being so far away from the sea.
Yeah. So what was it, I guess, about pushing your gear to the limit that made you want to do that, and sort of obviously forced the gear upgrade because you weren't getting the results that you wanted? What was it about that sort of long exposure photography you were that intrigued you and motivated you, I guess?
That I think it was, and I still think it's the magic of long exposure. I think if you go out into the countryside or even along the coast, wherever you are, you can take a photograph that represents the scene, the emotion,
Mhm.
how you feel, and it's almost, it's a story of that place. It's almost a direct representation of what you can see and tangibly understand. With long exposure photography, especially when you go to the length of some of my photography, is that you don't know. You anticipate what it's going to look like, but you don't actually know what you're going to get. And the longer you have to wait, I think the longest exposure that I've done, I think, was 27 minutes.
Wow,
Um,
that's massive. Yeah,
yeah. It came out quite noisy, I have to say. It wasn't really noise. There was quite a few hot spots that I had to clean up.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and that was down at the Pinnacles in Victoria. So yeah, really pushing the gear, because you it's that moment of discovery when the process is finished and then that image just appears.
Yep.
I think I purposely went away from Olympus, because Olympus give you the option, in addition, to see the photograph develop on the back on the screen, so you can see, quite how it's going and what it looks like, and then you can stop the shutter should you wish.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I didn't like that. I didn't. That didn't do it for me.
Interesting.
I didn't want to see it. I wanted to wait. I wanted to then, I suppose, determine what that shutter speed should be for the effect that I want to happen, and tell the story of that image. And then it's either, when it comes up, it's make or break. So it's either then it's worked out the way I want to. Sometimes it works out and exceeds what you expected. And, quite a few times it's the other way. And you
Yeah,
think, why did I bother with that? Because, yeah, it's a waiting game.
yeah, absolutely. I, I get what you mean in terms of that anticipation that you have, before the shot is actually finished, or the exposure's finished. I mean, I think the longest I've done is about 11 minutes or so. So, nowhere near the 27-minute. But then I've also done, I do quite a lot of bracketing now in doing that, with the combination of very long exposures as well. I could probably add up to, I've got shots where I know I've added up to probably about 50 or 60 minutes, so over an hour of exposure time in a single shot, but no one exposure over about that 10-minute period. But yeah, that's it is I think it's a very different way of looking at the world as well, because all of the detail in terms of the water and sky, pretty much disappears at those lengths.
It is. It's almost like it's, because humans, are fleeting creatures.
Mm-hmm.
We're around. If we're lucky, to 70 to 90 years ish. If we're blessed and we're lucky enough, to live that long, and so our senses and our perception is all based on that time frame. Long exposure is something that, a, a tree or something that's more inanimate would see. It would
Yeah.
just stoically stand there while the world passes it by,
Mm.
and its perception would be different. It wouldn't see the individual drops. It wouldn't see the individual waves, because its lifespan is so much longer. It would blur it. It would just elongate it and stretch its
Mm.
perception somewhat. That's why you can't hit a damn fly while it's flying, is because it's got a lifespan of 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So time for it is so much quicker.
Yeah.
So you try
We're
and
so
spot
much
it.
slower than they are. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the sort of, kick, I suppose, that I get out of that long exposure photography, because it gives you a glimpse into a different time frame, a different perspective
Yeah.
that we just don't normally wouldn't see it normally. We need to utilize something to stretch that time a little bit, and long exposure photography is it. I think it was about a year ago that even some of my long exposure photography just wasn't cutting it.
Yep.
I went through a period where I was doing ultra longs and black and whites, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that, and I will go back to my black and white. I haven't purposely shot black and white for probably about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, forget COVID in between. So
Sure,
a year before COVID. So we call that what, BC?
Yeah.
Before
Before
COVID.
COVID.
So yeah, for a year before COVID, I probably was I was doing less going out to shoot black and white and moving more into color. And I think that's really cool. For the last year, I've been concentrating on shooting way before dawn.
Yep.
So I've been shooting at nautical twilight. So that's up to an hour before the sun crests the horizon. And I know that if I arrive at a place, it's pitch black. But if I set up and I set the camera, if it's an hour before sunrise for 8 minutes, I know I'll see something that'll appear that I can't even, never mind that I can't even anticipate. It'll be something that I can't even see because I'm in the pitch black.
Yeah.
And so I suppose that's a double whammy now. So I'm getting long exposure and I'm getting it out of pitch blackness, you know?
Yeah.
And at the moment,
I know exactly what I've played around with a little bit of that myself, and it is a very different sort of photography to that. I mean, the standard blue hour sort of before and after sunset, where you can sort of see, yes, there's light hitting those clouds, or there's that glow in the horizon, and if you're lucky, you might get a few reflections or some lighting on the water or something in front of you. But that pre-dawn darkness, as you say, that nautical twilight is a different game altogether.
It is, and it's surprising the amount of colour that is refracted from the, because you're talking the sun's probably between 6 and 12 degrees below the horizon.
Yep.
But there is, if you get it right, and of course it's the weather gods and Mother Nature that helps you out. If you've got that high cloud and there's enough of it, you will see that you'll have a dull red glow. That's sort of just ephemeral and up there. But you do an 8-minute exposure, and that color, I think that color intensifies, because you got to remember that your camera not only collects light, it also collects the color of light.
Yeah.
And so because it's collecting color, and if it's a very faint red, that red will intensify in the final image. And I've had, that's my dog, sorry. I've had images where the light has gone very quickly from yellow to blue over the course of a long exposure. And the resulting color is actually quite green. So you can get green clouds, and you think, I thought something was wrong with my camera at first, when everything was just tinged in green, and had to do a bit of research, and it's collecting different color photons that over time blends, so you can get real magentas, the deep ruby reds, and greens, and odd colors that just pop into your imagery. So it's almost like alchemy in a way.
Yeah,
it's quite cool.
Fascinating. When you said you were doing black and white, were you going out and shooting in black and white, so setting the camera to mono, or were you doing a black and white conversion of a color image?
No, I was setting the camera to mono and just purely shooting for form, texture and light. I think they were the thing. I think form is probably still with me, but yes, it was really about capturing the bare minimum of that image that really speaks to itself. So it's about changing tonal contrast. I still mostly shoot contra draw, so I usually shoot into the light.
Yep.
Which gives you a high contrast scene, which is usually favorable for black and white.
Yeah.
But you don't get the tonality that some black and whites need.
Yeah.
So you don't get that spread. You have to shoot away from the sun for that. But no, still, I'm very stubborn. So I'm determined to shoot into the sun regardless. And I want that tonality, as well as that high contrast. And it really makes you a master of looking at the conditions. So one of my images was in the top 30 for Australian Photographer of the Year, which I was quite proud of. But that image took me nearly 4 years to get. I kept going back and back and back, and then it wasn't right. I needed the wind to blow the clouds in a certain direction. I needed the flow and the to come in a different direction. And it took me about 4 years before I thought, this is the one. I was so nervous. This is everything I want. It's going to turn out, and it did. So so that's probably, I think after that shot, I probably went off black and white for a while because I thought that I'd nailed it after so long, and I didn't want the next one to be rubbish. I didn't want to fail at the next one, so maybe that had an effect on me.
So in saying that, did you feel that if you'd sort of gone out and the conditions weren't quite what you wanted, because obviously you're going into the field with a concept of what you're trying to pull together, did you see that as taking a backward step?
No, strangely enough, I knew when I was going out and I had a picture in my head, I was trying to force the image out of sheer will. I had an image in my head that I wanted. I was trying to force it. Arriving at that particular location, within a minute, it's not going to happen. And so you revert back to, okay, so what is this now telling me? I didn't see that as a failure. It was just that I was on a hunt, and if I couldn't get that, then I was gonna search to find something else that spoke to me.
Got it.
That's probably the way it was. So I never felt disappointed that I didn't get it. I always thought that one day that will happen.
Sure.
I've still got another picture in my head that I've had since I've picked up the camera and really want, and that's not happened yet. So I've got an idea and a picture in my head, and I just haven't found the location for it yet.
Fair enough. So how much planning are you putting into a shoot like that? So prior to actually turning up and setting up your tripod, what are you doing, I guess, to make sure that conditions are right, or every day I go out, I know that regardless of how many forecasts I look at and whatever, it's never quite what it says it's going to be.
No, I hate forecasts. I still use them. But I absolutely hate them because they either tell you everything's perfect, and you go out and they're not, or it tells you that you shouldn't go out, and then you're umming and ahhing and wasting time deciding to go out.
Yeah, or where to go.
That will suit it. So I think what I've learned to do now is as you know, I mostly do dawn. I mostly do dawn because maybe it's because I'm antisocial, in the fact that when I arrive somewhere, I want it to myself. If you go at sunset, chances are there's people sitting around, and it's their right. They absolutely are. We're here to share, but I know sunsets are often more difficult in terms of people being about. And for me, I prefer that, just me and the object, whatever it is I've come to photograph. I don't mind other photographers. It's just when you get people just wandering about and just enjoying the place. It's just not for me, because I want to capture something, and I tend not to have people in my shots if I can help it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I don't mind the odd person in the shot. Depends on where I am and where I'm shooting and what I'm shooting. But I try to get as many shots as I can without people. Maybe we share the same antisocial tendencies. I don't know.
It's not that. I think to be honest, I'm going to use another word that's probably even worse. It's probably selfish, in the fact that I've come here and I have a connection with this object, and I want to show it off to what I believe is the best way that I can.
Yeah.
And anything else is either a distraction. Saying that, I do take you may have seen on the videos that I produce, I do take along our puppies, not a puppy, 3 now, Rafi. So I don't mind sharing it with him. Because he's great company and he doesn't chatter in my ear most of the time. And I can put him on a lead and move him out the way if necessary.
That doesn't ask you what you're doing.
No. And he's always impressed with whatever I do, so that'll work. But yes, so I think it's partly selfish in the fact that I want to do the best I can, and early mornings are the time when there's the least possible chance of distraction. But I love it when we bump into other photographers. That's having, obviously that's going to happen, and it has happened many times, and it's always been a good feeling to have people around all taking images of the same thing in different ways, and chatting away, and what are you doing, how are you doing that, and that's interesting. I don't mind that. Maybe it's a shared outlook. We're all trying to do the same thing. But yeah, and plus, as I said earlier, that I do nautical twilight. I don't know what it is, but nautical twilight in the morning seems generally to be better, cleaner color, deeper color than nautical twilight of an evening. I don't know whether that's because there's more dust in the air because of the day. That sort of dilutes it slightly. It gives you beautiful tones, but it's just a different color. It's more pinky off and orange. Whereas in the morning, you get deep ruby reds. So there is a slight difference there. But in terms of planning, yes, I check the weather. So it's the normal, Skippy Sky is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
YR.no is another one. I don't know if you know that one.
I haven't heard of that one, but
it's
certainly going to take a look now.
Yeah, well, no, it's a Scandinavian one. I think it's it really is good. It gives you a if you go to details, it gives you a breakdown of the cloud in terms of everywhere. It gives you the low, middle, and high, but it also gives you dew point. Also gives you altitude clouds, so clouds that are higher. And for me, doing early photography, clouds that are higher than high cloud, they're the ones that really light up. They carry the light across from the other side of the world through that refraction. So yeah, YR.no is one I check before I go out. And you can, it'll do it worldwide, so it's pretty good. And of course, being by the sea, I always check the tide, and just as importantly, the swell. And the wind direction. That's the safety, really. The swell's the safety. Tide is because it depends where you're going, whether you need high or low tide to get to where you want and get the look you want. I'm always mindful of swell. I've one or two hiccups with swell where I used to check the tide and not the swell.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a DA50 on my tripod on a ledge, and I had a wave that came up, hit the ledge behind me, splashed up probably over my head, and came down and took my other bag with the spare camera in it and two lenses, and off it went. Yeah. So, but I had hold of the DA50 at the time on my tripod, but I could have easily gone with it because it was just one of those waves. The tide was in, but it was the swell. It literally hit the shelf along one side, flew along the wall, and then came back down on top of me. And
I know the sort of wave. I've been made a little damp once or twice through some of those.
Yeah, well,
I haven't lost any gear that way, but
no, that was an expensive outing, but it made me realize that I need to do a little bit more checking, especially clambering over rocks. Lakes are great, but if I'm by the sea, then I need to be responsible and really do that check. So tide and swell wind is if I'm going towards the sea, then that's what I check.
Yeah. So you're sussing out your locations on Google Earth, or are you going to places that you kind of have physically checked out yourself beforehand, or
a mixture of all of that. I think I've only been in South Australia now for not even a year, so I'm still sort of getting used to the landscape and topography, and I don't know what's available to be shot yet. So I suppose I'm checking other Instagrammers first of all, in terms of if I know I'm going to go. So if we're going on a short break, then I'll probably check Instagram and check that area and just see what sort of photographs, what sort of views are available. I use Google Maps, as you said, and often drop the little man onto a little blue circle so I can have a look around. I zoom in very closely to Google Earth, and Google Maps with the terrain on, and inch along the coast. I found several out of the way, hidden, broken jetties that way.
Okay. Yeah.
Mostly in Victoria, but I found one here in South Australia that, as far as I'm aware, there's actually three of them, very large pilings, and as far as I can tell, they've not been photographed at all by anyone. So I'm looking to go and photograph them when I get the opportunity. I'm
find those sorts of things.
Yeah. So long as it looks unique and I'm excited. I've been there and I've seen them. Whether I can make a photograph of them is yet to be seen. They're difficult where they are in terms of vegetation growing. So I might have to wait to winter so it dies back. But I'm thinking about that now. I think moving to South Australia has made me widen what I photograph.
Yep.
Because it's very modern, the coastline here, in terms of jetties. And as beautiful as they are, they don't sing to me like broken bits of wood and iron. The character's just not there for me. As beautiful, they really are beautiful, but I need to work a little harder now. So I'm up for the challenge. I'm looking now at salt pans. I'm looking at the many ruined buildings and abandoned farm buildings that are around. I'm like in the desert. There's desert within quite an easy drive. We've got the Flinders Ranges, and I'm excited again, but I'm also a beginner again
Yeah.
when it comes to that photography. Waterfalls, for instance, you mentioned them. I've taken 2 waterfalls in my life. Yet there's about half a dozen in less than an hour's drive from here. So,
Sure.
so I'm waiting for the rainy season and
Yeah.
get
Okay.
down.
Well, we're getting plenty of that at the moment. So
Too much. Yeah.
waterfalls are, to be honest, though, I think at the moment, some of them are a little too full of water. So, you can go and A, it can be really dangerous, but B, it doesn't make a great shot when there's just torrents and torrents of brown, dirty. Well, I won't say it's dirty water; it's carrying a lot of dirt.
It is. It's churned up, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just doesn't look great as a shot. It's not. It makes for spectacular videos, I guess. But not necessarily great for photography. Also, really hard to keep your gear dry too. You're always having to wipe off the lens because the spray coming off those sorts of torrents is a bit of a challenge. But I mean, I'm still working on a project in terms of waterfalls around the Illawarra escarpment. And I saw a new one yesterday, actually, that I've never seen before, up behind Ostermere, coming off the top of the escarpment. And it's literally just because of the amount of water that's piled up on there and is pouring off the side. And,
it's just worked its way through.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't have my camera with me at all to get any kind of shot of it. But
it's always the way, isn't it? Always the way. But yeah, no, they're unique, once in a lifetime. Shots, or once a decade shots. So fingers crossed you get back.
Yeah, well, I'm planning to head down there again this week because there's more rain forecast. So there's
there you go.
Good chance it'll still be flying.
As long as you're safe, that's the thing.
Yeah. It's not somewhere. I think what I'll be doing with that particular one is staying at the bottom of the escarpment and using a long lens, because it's literally off the top of the cliff. And I think climbing up to get into the bottom of it is not going to be easy, for one thing, but also it's just I think it's pretty wild and scrabbly bushland as well to get through. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
To get there, is he going to make it? Yeah. Is he going to make a better shot after all of that? That's the thing.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's all about the composition and whether or not it works. And to be honest, in that location coming off the cliff, it's the hillside going up to the bottom of the actual cliffside. The cliffside's vertical, but the hillside going up to it is very steep as well. So even if you did get to the seat of the falls where it's hitting the top of the hillside, it's pretty much just going to be a straight up shot up the cliff, which I just can't see it working. So I think standing further back using a longer lens is probably going to be the way to go.
We'll capture it now. Best of luck with that. Yeah. Especially seeing when the rain stops, it'll go.
Yeah, it'll disappear. Literally 5 minutes after the rain stops, it'll stop.
Dry up. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But, anyway, we'll see what happens with that one. But I did see another couple of falls. Somebody posted one the other day, I think, down at Turrametta Beach, which I shoot a fair bit, which is, it's a nice beach for photography, because there's quite a lot of rock formations around there, but it's not one with a surf club or anything, so it's a little bit less accessible than some of the other ones. But saw waterfalls coming off the cliffs there down to the sea. There on the weekend. Somebody posted some shots of that, so I might take a look at that too. So
yeah, Yeah, I think being in South Australia, loving the water, I think this is generally a pretty dry state.
Yeah.
So I might have done a boo boo there, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I mean, you've got one of those very rare opportunities, I guess. If you head north up to Lake Eyre, there's a lot of water up there at the moment, from what I understand. So as you said, taking the salt pans, you'd probably be actually taking small lakes in some of those locations now, because
there will be once they're wet. Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of water coming down from Queensland and Northern Territory at the moment, and I think that's going to make a bit of a difference to the desert for a couple of months anyway, till it all dries up.
That's it, bound to. Yeah, yeah.
So I guess go on.
I was going to say that I think over the last couple of years, I think I was primarily shooting jetties. I think if you go back on my Instagram feed, it was like pieces of stick in water, or jetties in water, obviously. And I think my latest passion at the moment has been trees. I think that's where I've sort of shifted away from the jetties. Having shot a lot of them and shot a lot of them several times, I've expanded or changed somewhat, and so I'm really excited about getting the camera out in lakes, especially lakes full of water, of course. So that's my next, I think, passion. If I'm not at the seaside, I'm gonna. Here in South Australia, we've got Lake Bonny, and Lake Bonny is just, it's a photographer's dream. So many trees. Even you photograph one tree about 3 different ways. It's insane. Some of the trees that are up there. So it's only a small hop, skip, and a 3-hour drive. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have any sort of routine that, you set up? Obviously, you've got your planning done, your image in mind, and so you turn up on location. What are you thinking about? What are you looking for? What are you doing with your gear?
Well, normally when I turn up, and of course it's way pre-dawn, I've already generally decided on the first shot. So that's usually 8 minutes ish, sometimes a touch longer, but it's an 8-minute image. Just the ISO if necessary, and the aperture, so that I get my 8 minutes. And again, that's I wouldn't say it was luck at the start. I think I generally nail 9 out of 10 now in terms of focusing on the right thing and actually getting the exposure correct, even though it's pitch black. So my first image is generally planned, because it has to be, because I'm in complete darkness. After that, it's more about reacting to the light at that point. So and also trying to get the best. So to compromise, then it's a compromise between the light and the object, whatever it is I've come to photograph. And it tends to be an object. I tend to photograph as if it's a portrait rather than a landscape. So I tend to focus on a single object, sometimes without a foreground. It depends on what level of how strong that image is. If that image, I believe, is strong enough, it doesn't need a foreground, then I won't give it one. I'll just make it center stage. So it's a compromise once the light's starting to come up between where the light is and how best to use that against the subject, which side, what perspective, high, low, to one side, to the other, straight down the middle, is best to capture this thing, whatever it is. And into that mix is often is often the flow. So I do shorter, much shorter exposures. So if I'm around rocks, quarter of a second, couple of seconds, not got a problem with that. But for the longer ones, it's more, it's about how much wind is there, what direction is it, which way the cloud's going. Definitely the light. How can I use the light? Is there any color left? And it's everything in the mix. It's usually a crazy 20 minutes. At that point, I have no idea which way I'm going to be pulled. It tends to be the light will dictate first. The light will change. I'll react to that and suddenly go, okay, the light's here. I've got the clouds going this way. I've got the water there, and I've got this object. How can I put those four things together in some sort of jigsaw that feels right to me?
Yeah.
I'll be ducking, diving, left, right, up, down. And somewhere in the middle of that, I'll just stop for us. I'll just stop and I'll go, no, this is it. This is what I want to take. And then I'll shift the camera, set it down. I'm on autopilot then. I usually know how long I want that exposure to be. I know what depth of field I'm going to need. And of course, now shooting medium format, it now often means that I have to focus stack. Because depth of field works differently for medium format than it does on full frame. And believe you me, I lost a lot of images when I first went to medium format for exactly that reason. I thought f/16, I've got a jetty in front of me. I'll focus a third of the way through. Bingo, done. Yeah, I can walk away. Happy days. No, doesn't work like that with medium format.
Not quite the same. Yeah.
Not the same. Oh, you talk f/16 on full frame is about f/11 ish.
Yeah,
I think it's about 12 on medium format for the same focal length. So you need to focus stack.
Yeah.
You're forced to focus stack, and of course, I've had to adjust how I photograph and how I approach it to make sure that I get my long exposure. And I'm able to focus stack as well. So yeah, it slows you down a little bit, but then you have to speed up changing conditions to get what you want. It's a challenge. Medium format has been a real challenge, but when you get it right, the feel and the look and the files are just they're just amazing. So yeah.
So what do you do? Speaking of files, obviously medium format's going to be, getting up. What is it? 100 or 150 megapixels, or?
Yeah, often around 120 to 160 megapixels.
Yep.
What
are you doing for storage? Because that's going to eat it
up. It's growing quickly. I'm looking at a NAS. I'm looking at big storage, possibly within a year. So at the moment, I've got 4 18 terabyte drives.
Wow.
And I've got 2 12s and I've got 4 8s. Because I have 3 sets of backup.
Yeah.
So I have things from the past and they're backed up on the 8s, and they're basically, I fire them up once a month to make sure they're okay. And make sure they're both working fine.
These are external drives, yeah?
External, yeah, all external. I've got a couple of SSDs so when I bring new files in, I'll put them on the SSDs. So I've got 2 terabyte SSDs side by side, and I'll work off them because I need that speed. Then after that, they get bumped to the backup drives.
Got it.
Which is set up. I've got some software on the Mac, so that once I make a change, just before I switch off, I run the program and it mirrors them across the 4. So just to make sure that I've got redundancy built in, because I've lost a lot of files in the past Just having them on a single drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've moved from single drives to multiple externals, but I've also signed up with a cloud service as well, which luckily basically doesn't have a limit, which is nice.
Okay.
Yes. It's not the cheapest out there, but it's also not the most expensive. Okay. But yeah, it makes me feel better because it's just sitting here quietly picking everything up from the hard drive on the computer as I'm working on it, and just putting it away. So if anything does happen, and as I say, touch wood,
indeed,
I won't need it, but
I have been considering that, so we might chat about that at some point.
Yeah,
see what you recommend. But yeah, so what I tend to do is the drives I have, when I've finished backing them up, I pick 2 of them up, put them in a box, and then they go out in the shed. Just in case, God forbid, but something happened to the house. And then I've got them backed up in the shed, and then I have to, halfway through editing, I go, oh, damn, I've got to walk out to the shed, bring the drives back in, plug them in. But I try to separate them so that I've got, a redundant set somewhere else. So yeah. But they are mighty files. You're talking. One of the panoramas that I did was, overall was a 2 million megapixel file.
Wow. Yeah.
You're talking ridiculous. Ridiculous. And I got to the edge where the software I was using, Lightroom wouldn't photo merge them. Photoshop photo merge them. I've got Capture One that wouldn't do them because the new one will photo merge to panorama. That wouldn't do it. So I ended up using another piece of software that did do it, full resolution. So crazy files.
I've found one of the ways I've got around some of those things where Photoshop or one of the others won't process and it's usually, as you say, in those panos where you've got multiple, and because I've also bracketed, so whatever the exposure width is, say it's 5 shots, then each of those shots is 5 exposures. You end up with some massive files. But what I've found is breaking up the processing into separate smaller parts, and then doing the photo merge with those final effectively already processed single sets of images or single shots that I'm
single file, compressed file.
So basically you're only dealing with the JPEGs at the end to actually do the stitching, because the stitching itself is not necessarily the hard part. Depends on the size of the file and how many files I got to play with. Sometimes I do it the other way around, where I do the stitching and then use those stitched files to do then the blending and editing. But,
it does put a little bit of pressure on you on your computer gear, but I try not to do as little editing as I possibly can. I try, but I've gone back to earlier edited photos, looked at them, and thought, how the hell did you ever think they were any good? So I'm re-edited them much more sympathetically, I think.
I definitely know the feeling.
You just get addicted to sliders. I think every slider is meant to be pushed.
Everyone starts off with the 100% saturation, 100% vibrance, and then you learn, okay, well, that's not the way to do it.
That's right, and I think that's the every image now that I do, nautical twilight one that works out, I have to bump the vibrance and the saturation down. Often saturation 5%, but vibrance down by 10-15% because they're just unearthly. They just do not look. They don't look real, and even then, they're very highly saturated, but they're natural. The raw files.
That's the thing with those long exposures is they do tend to look a little oversaturated, and I've done the same myself. Taken saturation down even up to 15% in some cases, where you look at it and you go, no, it couldn't look like that.
That's exactly it. And the other thing as well, because it averages out the light, it tends to dull the contrast. So you got to be careful putting contrast back in.
Yeah.
Because what that will do is really push the colours back up again. It's just it's a no-win situation. You need that contrast because you've taken it out because of the long exposure.
Yeah.
And and it's increased saturation, but contrast will increase that even more.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So I tend to do what's called zonal contrast. So looking at the mid-tones, looking at the shadows, looking at the highlights, and then just subtle changes to each of those it gives you a lot more. So basically what you're doing, you're using a luminosity mask to actually, control which pieces
those areas
you're changing, and then just use a curves adjustment to adjust those. And it gives you a lot more control over what gets changed by what contrast, rather than doing a global contrast change, which, as you well aware, can give you some strange results.
It certainly can. Yeah, well, that zonal, that's Ansel Adams, isn't it? I think that was his approach way back when with film. He used the zonal approach.
Yeah.
Same way. But that's, you can see now why black and white's so much easier.
Absolutely.
Than working with colour. But yeah.
Mind you, I've seen some interesting. I forget what his name is. The guy that does F64 Academy. He's got some interesting stuff that really opened my eyes around how to go from and use your colours to control what your black and white tones are. And so I'll flick you a link to that tutorial. It's just a very different way of looking at that black and white conversion. So you're taking a colour shot, but then you're conversion using hue and saturation layers and changing the various values depending on what colour range you want to change. So you want to bump the reds up or down, or the blues up or down, and the yellows and so forth. So you're actually getting a lot more control over your tonal range.
Interesting.
Yeah, but this is the fascinating thing about it for me. In terms of processing, a lot of people don't want to talk about their processing and whatever, because it's it's just their way of doing things, and that. You get into that routine and you get into your workflow and it works for you and it gives you your style. But I like playing around a little bit to try and learn more about the tool and what it can and can't do, and what you can do to get more control over more of more granular control, as I guess what I mean around what you're doing with your images.
Yeah, no, I can hear. There's just there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah,
I try to limit my processing, but every now and then, when you're really, really enjoying an image, it's that point in time where you look across and, oh my God, I spent an hour on this.
Yeah,
it's just, where does that go? It is. Have you ever thought about infrared photography?
Funnily enough, I haven't. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Yes, I have thought about it. Have I done any of it? No. Have I actually experimented with it? Not really. No. It is something that I'd like to take a look at, but it. And I think it'd be interesting, actually. Talking about your 8-minute nautical twilight exposures, whether or not that makes any difference. Flipping your camera into infrared mode, and seeing what your eye definitely can't see.
Yeah, but again, that thing where I push it to the limit. When I no longer have the Nikons, I've only just got rid of them just before Christmas. I kept them as my safety net in case I didn't like the Fuji.
Yeah.
But the D800, I was going to keep that and get it converted, so that I wasn't going to mess around by doing infrared in software. I was considering actually having the sensor swapped and having a dedicated sensor in there, and I may still do that. That's something it's tickling in the back of my mind. Now that you say, I never even considered an ultra long exposure in infrared and what that could possibly look. See, you've got me excited now. I better hand the card to the wife, because
hang on a sec. Patent, copyright, Grant Swinburne. I've got to be honest, I don't know too many people that are doing the nautical twilight in the first place, and I'm pretty sure there's very few people that have played around with infrared in that space. I'm quite sure doing a Google search will find somebody that's done it. But,
I'm sure we have. Yeah, I think since posting on Instagram, you can before claiming that it was nautical twilight, I think photographers were out there and photographing during that time and maybe didn't have a label for it. But I have noticed that it's become it's more popular. I've noticed since I've been posting, and it may just be coincidence, but more and more photographers, especially on my feed, are out a bit earlier, and I think they're just getting addicted. It just means you've got to get out of bed an hour early, which is harder.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And that's for me also the hard part.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now I force myself, and it is difficult sometimes, especially, we're still in the midst, you're not, but we're still here in South Australia in the midst of the dreaded blue sky, so the thought of getting up and driving at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning when it's going to be a blue sky is, it can be a bit.
Isn't that when you shoot Astro?
But that's one thing that I've done it once.
Yeah,
I've just done it once, and it was only because I couldn't sleep, got up, went, and there was not a cloud in the sky, and I thought, I'll give it a go, and it wasn't too bad. It turned out quite well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's it's. I don't know. I think Astro's beautiful, and I think the people that do a damn fine job. And it's just
take some dedication to get out there, particularly in the middle of winter, which is our Milky Way season.
Yeah, exactly.
Be there for 8 or 9 hours. I know. I don't know if you've seen Chungi photos, or Hisu Chung is his name.
Okay.
He does these amazing dusk till dawn shots. So you'll see the sun setting in the west, and then
rising.
The full gamut of stars and everything, with the landscape done at twilight, and then you'll see the sun rising in the east. He's there, taking the multiple shots that it takes to create these amazing images, and it's just phenomenal dedication to actually sit there with your tripod set up,
that time slice. I've seen quite often those time slices.
This is blending all of those into a single cohesive image. Yeah, well worth.
I'll have a little look. Yeah. No, that is dedication. I suppose if it was our one and only business, I'm still working full time. So I only get out. I get out of a weekend, probably once, but now and then I might be able to sneak in a weekday photo shoot or something like that. But yeah, imagine 7 days a week just
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit closer than you may think. I've had a couple of changes with work, and at the moment I'm basically full-time photography and podcasting. That's all I'm doing at the moment. So it's not that I'm out there every day, because there's other things in life to do. There's
indeed. But you enjoying it?
Absolutely, totally. It's
awesome. Yes.
It's a lot better than working for a living. Because it doesn't. When you're doing it, it doesn't feel like work.
No, that's true. No, that's absolutely right. I hope I enjoy it, and I hope I enjoy it just as much when it's available for me all the time. I'm not sure whether the excitement and the highs and lows are because it's limited to me. I'm not sure yet. So it's a nice way of finding out.
I mean, it's only been a few months, so I can't say that the passion will live on for how long it'll live on for, but certainly so far haven't found anything where I'm sort of saying I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, I've got to say, Grant, as well, that I thoroughly enjoy the images that I see of yours as well.
Oh, thank you.
They really, really do. They do stand out. There's probably more, but there's about a dozen people who, when I see the name before I scroll up, it's like I scroll and stop.
Yeah.
And then I stop and enjoy the image. Whereas there's a lot you just you flick through and it'll only catch your eye, but there are certain photographers out there that you just know that there's something to learn, there's something to see, there's something to feel in the pictures that they create, and you're definitely one of them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and you're very much the same for me. One of the ones that I always stop and take a good look at, because I guess talking about Instagram and social media and so forth, where are you with that at the moment? Is it just Instagram that you're sharing your work, or are you doing more with it? Are you trying to sell prints on a website, or?
Well, I do. Yeah, I've got a website, although it's poorly looked after. I update it probably every 6 months or so, and then haphazardly throw some of my favorite images up, and then I forget about it. I do use Instagram. I'm a lot of people are down on Instagram. I still quite enjoy using it.
Yep.
I think because I'm not really bothered on the likes. If it does well, then people enjoy it, then great. And if they don't, then I think to myself, well, the right people haven't seen it.
Yep.
So for me, it's fine.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it because it's colourful when you scroll to your feed and you see all your images, and it's powerful. It's powerful to see a platform with your work on, I suppose, even though you've put it up. I do enjoy that colour, and I interact with a lot of people on Instagram.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who ask questions, direct questions, regardless of in the feed. A lot of beginners who say, really like to do this, how do you do that? And I enjoy talking to them.
Sure.
So no, for me, Instagram is, some people say it's a tool for them. I enjoy the interaction that I do get on there. So while that's working for me and other people are enjoying talking to me on that, I'll stick with that. Facebook's not really, I've not really attempted to use that in any real way. I've got a personal account which also has my photographs on. There's a whole collection of people. It's not a focus for a business or selling prints. I don't try and sell prints or force the sale of prints in any which way.
Sure.
I'm just happy if people want them, then they'll ask me.
Do you print many of your own shots for your own walls, or?
Yeah, I do. I've got I've probably got in the hall behind, which is behind you. I've got three of my favourites: two black and whites and a colour. And the colour one's actually from South Australia that I took when we holidayed here. We're from Victoria.
Yep.
So I've got those. I've just ordered 4 A2 metal prints, an aluminium, and they're all of Lake Bonny. So I've ordered those to come in. They're going out. They're going out for an exhibition. So they'll go in the exhibition. When that exhibition finishes, they'll go on my wall.
Yeah, great.
So over time, I've probably got about 10, 12 pictures that have been framed. But I suppose I get quite bored of them. I think having your own stuff on the wall. So on my wall, I've got other photographers' stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That I've purchased over the years. So I've got about 4 or 5 of other photographers' stuff, which goes up, and I don't get bored of them.
Yeah,
I move them around different rooms, but I don't get bored of those like I do my own. I suppose it's just
I guess I kind of get where you're coming from there, because you've created it, you've looked at it, you thought about the image before you went, you stood there in front of it and taken it, and then you've sat there and processed it for maybe up to an hour, maybe an hour and a half if if you've really worked it. And now you got it hanging on your wall. Do you really want to look at it anymore?
I think you've captured it. There is something in that. It's. I don't know. I suppose maybe it's this hubris thing, but maybe I want someone else to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I've enjoyed the entire process, and if I'm happy with the final image, I don't need to be reminded of that.
Yep.
I don't need to see it all the time. So it's possibly something along those lines.
Have you ever hit a creative wall?
Several times. No, several times. It's usually before I go out, so I won't go out.
Yeah.
So there's many occasions where I've set the alarm for 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock's come, the lights, the alarm's gone off. I've woke up, and I've just gone, no. I've just gone, I'm just not going to do it. And it's often when you look out the window an hour later, the most amazing sunrise ever in the world, and you kick yourself a bit. But then, no, if I'm not there, I'm not there. Has it? I'm trying to think if it's lasted. No, I don't think it's. I've probably had it for. I think the maximum I've had it for is about 2 weeks, where I haven't gone out. But I tend to get quite ratty.
Yeah.
I tend to get a bit tetchy, I think, if I haven't had that outlet. So in the end, often the wife just kicks me out the door with the keys in my hand, says, "Don't come back until you've done some photos." It's mainly because if I'm out and it's an absolute rubbish, awful sunrise, and every photograph I've took has been ruined either through camera shake or there's just nothing to take, that doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter to me because the sun's come up.
Yeah.
I've seen it go from dark to light, and I do feel that that's sort of an emotional, physical reset for me, and that's why I enjoy sunrise much more than sunset. I couldn't think of anything worse than staying out all day, setting up for your shot, and walking away with nothing, and then having to drive home for an hour and a half. I couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. I've got to admit.
Yeah, no, I have too, but at least if I'm driving home in the morning, an hour and a half, I can stop somewhere and have breakfast, and the rest of the day's there. It's just it's a different dynamic for me. I don't mind going out at 3 o'clock in the morning and then coming home tired. Even if I'm tired for the rest of the day, go to bed early. But that buoys me up. It does have an impact, I think, on my mood and my outlook. So once a week I have to watch the sunrise.
Yeah, fair enough. If actually, sorry, what do you like to do when you're not out shooting?
If I'm not out shooting, then well, we moved into this ancient house, so that consumes an awful lot of time. But if I'm not out shooting, I read quite prolifically. Still, I read. Voracious movie watcher.
Okay.
So, but mostly, I still read an awful lot. So I think that consumes a lot of time. And again, if I'm not taking photographs, I'm often, as I said earlier, I'm on Google Maps, and everything is about images. It's about the geography. It's about the story of the land. It's So I'm always busy. I think and of course I do a vlog now, so I'm often editing video that goes along with the images that I put up. So so you're talking one episode is a day's edit. So you've got to spread that through the week. So it's an hour a night or an hour and a half a night to get that done.
Yeah. It does take a bit of time. I know it's kind of similar with the edits on the podcast. As I said when we first started, I don't spend a massive amount of time editing everything, but cleaning it up, making sure that the intro and the music and all that sort of thing is all together and where it should be, and it does take a little bit of coordination. Plus, then there's all the
very slick. Yeah, no, they're very good. They're very slick. I'm still all at sea with mine. I just switch the camera on and then just babble most of the time.
Let's say that's why I invite guests, so I don't have to do the babbling.
Yeah, it's clever. That's clever.
Because I've got to say I don't like the sound of my own voice very much, so I skip over the bits where I'm talking. And
I don't think anyone does. Well, no, if they do, avoid them.
Yes, that's it.
It's probably the way to go there.
Anyone who likes the sound of their own voice, you probably don't want to be near.
No, that's true. They're probably a politician, but yeah, we'll leave that.
Yeah. So, are there any photographers out there that you think need to be spoken to on the podcast?
There's CC Images on Instagram.
Yep.
So that's Craig. Can't remember his surname. It's in my head.
Craig Crossway, I think.
Yeah, Crossway. He's a great photographer. I think my claim to fame is that on his first real shootout, we met each other, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I whipped out my filters and started setting my tripod up with my filters, and he was suitably impressed. He told me that he went out the following week and bought a set of filters. So that, I suppose, is a claim to fame. But he's a real good photographer.
Yeah, I like Craig's work a lot.
Really nice guy. He is. He's a great guy. And I suppose there's a couple of American photographers who I speak to quite regularly. So that's Paul Cook.
Yeah.
And there's so if you're talking around the world, there's a couple in there's one in Ireland who's a fantastic photographer, and then there's a female photographer, Lynn Luxon Jones.
Okay. Yep.
She's handy with a camera. She's very, very good. She often says she's not as good as anyone else, but her work's as good as any I've seen coming out of the UK.
Yeah.
She's a smart cookie. Her long exposures are just sublime. She's a very, very good photographer. Again, it's part-time, but she's got a healthy following on YouTube, but she's very, very good. I'd recommend her, actually.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure how the time zone difference would work, but she's great. She's really good.
Yeah.
She inspired me to actually create a YouTube channel, in terms of I loved her work, and that easy way in which she just chatted to camera. She made it look easy, which I found out it wasn't when I first tried it. But yeah, no, I'd probably say she's pretty good.
Fantastic. Oh, I got one last question for you, and for many, it's the most important question I can ask, and that's whether or not you like pineapple on pizza.
Ah, right, okay. I don't mind pineapple on pizza. I think if you're going to have pineapple on pizza, you've got to have pineapple and olive at the same time. So you get the sweet and the salt, and you get the salt. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have life in balance, I think.
I think so. Yeah, it is. And not everyone likes olives, so do you know what I mean? So
I get it.
You can spread the hate.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to me, Izzy. It's been fantastic to hear about what you've been up to, and how you do what you do. Where can people find your work?
First and foremost, I suppose it's Izzy Abuleela on Instagram. There's only one, as long as you don't spell the name wrong. There's only one, or on YouTube. My website is a bit of a mouthful, and it really I need to change the domain. So it's photomed, and then there's a -ia, so it's photomedia. But yeah, no, it's awful. Forget that. I think it's Instagram.
I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, yeah. It's a terrible domain. I don't know what I was thinking when I thought that one up. One too many gins, I think.
Fair enough. All right, thank you, mate. It was really good having a chat to you. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening, because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work and this podcast at grantswinburnephotography.com. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.